This is gonna be cool.
The topics and opinions expressed on the Dudes and Beer podcast are intended for an audience of 18 and up and are solely those of the host and guests. They neither reflect the opinions or values of either the sponsors of Dudes and Beer or your mother. I mean, seriously. Have you ever heard these guys? They'll talk about anything.
Whoa, hey, you think they're gonna show it? They'll probably just blur it out. Whoa, check it out, Beavis.
Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another awesome-ass episode of Dudes and Freaking Beer. I am Chris Jordan, your host, here once again with my brother and Houston co-host Randy Jordan, as well as Houston co-host Billy Stuart, my buddy and brother from another mother. And we're going to do a topical episode tonight. You know, here lately on Dudes and Beer, we've really gotten into the free ball format. We really love the just bouncing things off of each other, seeing where things go. But we've had a couple of lost episodes with Dudes and Beer. Believe it or not, folks, even though I do AV for a living, even though I do this stuff all the time, we do have some technical difficulties, and sometimes there are just episodes where, hey, if I was to cut those things out, which we don't do on Dudes and Beer number 1, the shit's unedited. If it's a 2-hour conversation, it's 2 hours, you know? Yeah. If you said something offensive, hey, that's what the hell that disclaimer was for. Sorry. So we don't do a lot of editing here, and a lot of times to take parts of the conversation that are having the technical difficulty out really subtract from the conversation and make them disappear. So we had a great conversation one night about extrasolar origins, extrasolar entities, UFOs, all kinds of stuff. And it was lost to time because of technical difficulties, and we're shooting it again tonight.
It was aliens.
And it was aliens. It was great. It was fantastic. And I'm all about talking about these topics. I love talking about them. Whenever we come back, Billy's going to kick us off and really get the conversation going on a great conversation of aliens, origins, and technology. So right now, this word from our sponsor. Do you love Halloween? Do you like DIY projects? ScaryDad.com is your one-stop shop for everything DIY, from projects and food recipes to book and movie reviews, as well as the awesomely awesome Scary Dad podcast. Halloween is not just a day on the calendar. It's a state of mind. So don't sit around wondering what you're going to do this holiday season. Log on to ScaryDad.com to join the mailing list. Get the latest ScaryDad.com news and updates, from projects and DIY videos to recipes and reviews. It's everything you've ever wanted in a DIY website and more. So stop on by and visit them online today. That's ScaryDad.com. Once again, that website is ScaryDad.com. All right, so Billy, what I love about this is that whenever we have done topical episodes, because of my background in broadcast media, I was so used to giving lists of news in certain formats and like tying things together in a story packet, like, hey, here are these 5 topics in the news today and they all go together, here we go, to my hosts. I do that a lot with the topical episodes of Dudes and Beer. Whenever we talk about specific topics, I will actually forward everybody the memos and like, hey, here are the articles I'm talking about, things like that. And I encourage everybody to do that whenever they have a topic that they want to bring up. Billy specifically told me before I got here, hey man, I want to rebroach this because that was a badass conversation and I'm sad it was lost, but I was really kind of scattered. So Billy actually went through the effort to put shit together. And I love that, dude, because like I said just before I went and Wazzle Smurf before we started this mug, preparation makes good content. Preparation makes good content. Whenever you know what the fuck you're talking about and you know what your thoughts are going to be, you can really lay some shit out. So, Billy, You got 5 minutes on the floor. Lay it out, dude. Give us your shit.
Okay, well, I'm going to need a little more than 5 minutes. You've seen no. But, okay, so basically what we had talked about last time was Chris and Randy were both discussing the possibility, the probability, and whatnot, and so forth of us having been visited by aliens both in the past and currently, shared technologies, and how they may have contributed to our advancement as a species. And I'm more of a skeptic on that. My contention is that yes, there are amazing things, but yet it's us. We're doing it. And in our conversation, you guys had some pretty specific references to human history went up to this point, and then we shot into the stratosphere right around the same time as Roswell. And stuff. And this is a subject that I'm passionate about, and I read a lot about, and I'm knowledgeable about. But like Chris said, the thing was lost to time, and there was also a couple of issues in that I was scattered. I'm not. It's not that I'm not a believer, and I will get into that momentarily. But what it is that there's just certain things that trigger that skeptic.
Yeah. Wait
a second. So, if you will, I'm going to lay out my position, and then we'll
preach on.
We'll go from there.
I will preach on.
So on the concept of visitation from aliens, whatever. There is a lot of conjecture about what could be and what is and what isn't. What really strikes me about whether or not we've been helped by either found technology or given technology or whatever, there is if you Google it, it's pretty easy to find. It's called the Fermi paradox. And it was proposed by a couple of physicists in the 1950s. So right around the time of our kind of jump forward in technology and everything.
Yep.
Right.
And essentially, it goes like this. Our sun is a typical size. And in our galaxy alone, there are likely millions of suns similar to ours. So there's a very high probability of similar planets that could bear life and bring forth an intelligent species. Even though with our current understanding of things, faster than light travel is supposedly impossible. They say that even at sub-warp speed, so to speak, it would only take about 1 million years to traverse the galaxy.
Sure.
So the possibility of being visited by an alien life form, or the fact that they're even out there, is pretty high. But the fact that one would have been here is also pretty high. Here's the paradox. There has not been any contact to mainstream science. To the mainstream, there hasn't been any straightforward, like, hey, this is something that we either found or that is here.
Right.
Everything is rumored. It has some kind of reasonable explanation. It's covered up by the government, what have you. But there's like an alien craft has not just flown in over Atlanta and been like, here we are. Well, wait for it.
Not announced. No.
Well, no, I mean, like, to where, like, everybody at the same time, like, in Independence Day is like, holy crap.
Right.
No, that's what I'm saying.
There's
Yeah.
absolutely no way that anybody can cover that up because everybody saw it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not talking little small towns in the desert.
Yeah.
We're talking, like,
Major
mainstream.
cities. Major cities.
Okay? On our planet, we have millions of species that exist.
Yeah.
But only one is self-aware and capable of escaping the gravitational pull of our planet. Only one out of millions.
Parrots.
No, we're talking like to get out of
Yeah, I'm with you.
to leave our atmosphere.
Yeah. Us.
And so therefore, perhaps the concept of the possibility of complex life and intelligent life is not typical, even though it seems as if. And even if it is typical, they're in some span of development same as we are. Maybe we all exist, but we're all still trying to figure out how to make it to Mars.
Yep.
So sort of thing. Maybe the distances between systems really are too
Yep.
far. In that, if there was we send a manned mission out, but the environment fails and they're just floating through space dead, and there's no, eventually they crash. Nobody
Yep.
finds them. Or they destroy themselves before they are capable of traversing.
Sure.
And then ultimately it comes down to finances. They just simply do not have the resources to make this happen. So paradoxically, it's pretty highly likely that it could happen, but at the same time, all of these other things make it equally likely that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The one that I focus on is they destroy themselves, and I'll get back to that. I'll circle back around to that one in a moment.
And that's most cultures, even within humanity. So we got that.
my thoughts are, and we're going to get into some stuff here in a minute.
All right.
My thoughts are that what we consider to be aliens are human craft. Okay, it's
Creepy.
okay.
You don't even know, dude. We'll get into that.
So some of the things, just for an example, is some form of the internet has existed since the 40s. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
And we only really you got mail in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So there's about 50 years of it existed in a black helicopter realm
Well,
before
it
it
ex-
was ever really.
It existed in an academic realm
Well, it
because they
existed
used it
academically.
to share between laboratories via distance for a long time
True.
before it was ever used and adapted for military service.
But,
so
but what I'm talking about
UCal
is
used it. So
the technology itself existed and developed and was used before the public ever really kind of knew about it and what it could be used for. And it wasn't until the free market kind of got a hold of it and was like, oh, hey, we can improve porn with this sort
Yeah.
of thing that made it made it wake up. Okay. When you have unlimited budgets and we have unlimited access, not we personally, but the government has unlimited access to the smartest and most educated people that have ever lived on the planet.
Yep.
So yeah, you could
You brought them in.
You could come up with some sort of crazy water-driven warp drive super helicopter and throw a pilot, whether willing or unwilling, into it and tell him to fly it. And whether he crashes or not is kind of irrelevant because it's all under wraps anyway.
Right.
And so a lot of what we could see is it's military. Okay? So I'm saying that they're not extraterrestrials. And let's dial it back to say if they were extraterrestrials, why would they share technology on purpose or even accidentally and not be revealed to everybody in some way? Why would an alien craft just fly around crashing next to some military installation
Right.
in New Mexico instead of, again, like just flying into downtown in L.A. and just being like, "Hey, what's up? Point your cameras at us." If they wanted, if they were around, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
In order to keep something that big under wraps, they would have to have collusion and cooperation from literally every single government on the planet. Governments that don't get along with each other.
Sure.
Okay. So, putting aside how
You mean like the UN?
Yeah. Well, not everybody's in the UN. You know, but putting aside for a second how terrifying that would be, that they are just kind of cool with the way the governments treat the rest of the population, and they're just like, oh, well, you know, let's we'll just hover about and hide behind the dark side of the moon while you guys all keep going to war and stuff, and then eventually we'll something, I don't know, but it just motivation just you know, if you think about the way we think about things, if we were to fly to a planet and we'd be like, we are here to help you, or we're here to observe, we're not going to go make contact with literally 180 different separate small groups of ruling class and collude. Y'all all keep a secret by hook or by crook. Like it's doesn't make sense.
Okay.
We also make a lot of assumptions that if these things sort of exist, that we even could communicate. Okay. Even the smartest animals among us, we can communicate in a very, very minor way, but our communication methods do not translate to any other creature at all. The way we think about things doesn't work. If we try to talk to ants, they don't get it, right? So, assuming that there is some other species out there, we're you know, even if there were aliens, there's not necessarily a way we're going to be able to communicate with them, that we would understand each other's anything. Okay? The fact that we are somehow advanced and deserving of interstellar community when the whole planet is always on the brink of war, and the only reason we have the capability to leave the Earth because we retrofitted ICBM technology to show up an enemy, is the only reason that we made it to the moon and even into space at all. Okay? That brings us back to that we destroy ourselves before we're able to even traverse the stars. We're using weapons-grade technology to compete with ourselves. Yeah. Who's to say, like, what do you think, like, John Lennon is playing on another planet, a light year away, and they just all got it, you know. And I'm going, and I'm going to give you these guys notes, and y'all can hit me back.
I'm taking notes right here. I got my notes for your notes.
Okay,
roll on.
My thoughts, you know, continued. Okay,
pages, boys and girls.
Still on the first page here.
Right. No, there's only one page. It's like a page in a note.
Oh, you brought copies for everybody.
Okay, that's what it is. I'm taking my notes over.
You guys are scared.
I'm good. Ain't nobody's scared. This is going to be fun.
Okay, my thoughts, part 2.
No fear. Part 2.
Humans were very clever and inventive, but we tend to stick with something if it works. Last time we talked about how we don't know how the pyramids were built and we can't replicate it, okay? And that's fair. However, the people who built the pyramids did things differently that worked for them, and we do things the way we do, and we followed a different path to where we are. How do we know that wheels and or jets are really the best way to do things, or if that's just what works for us? And people in a different time period had a different way of doing things, had a different sort of math. Not necessarily that the math is different, but just their concept of it is different. Little alien to us, but not unhuman. Not necessarily. Sure. Okay? I also believe that human history is a lot longer than we think it is. Okay?
Mm-hmm. By that.
Oh, yeah.
Every time they find a bottle in a tar pit, it sets the record back a few thousand years. from what they thought to where,
Yep.
and they have to recalculate. And a few thousand years, when we're talking on a cosmological scale, is not that long. But a few thousand years is time enough for great civilizations to rise, crumble back to dust.
Yep.
Okay? Rome would be gone, completely gone, without active conservation efforts. And they were only there 2,000 years ago.
Yep.
Right.
Our only real delineation between ourselves and any past culture is plastic. Yet even plastic rots if given enough time. Excluding plastic, think of how long it would take for the forest to reclaim Houston completely. Concrete rotted, steel beams rusted away. A few thousand years, maybe?
No. There are Discovery Channel shows that show that literally, like, it will take over within a year and a half, 2 years.
Right.
It will be gone. Like, the buildings will be crumbled by roots and shit like that. Within 10 years, you're looking at a forest
Well, it's like they
with some
you know,
remnants of buildings.
We're gonna clear some land. We're gonna clear some land for a friggin' banana plantation.
Yep.
And all of a sudden we come across acres of freaking, perfectly formed, spherical, rocks, boulders, that are perfect spheres.
Yep.
Oh, this was just buried all under jungle vines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that takes no time.
It takes no time afterwards.
No time.
It takes
Dude,
within
we
10
find
years.
whole freaking temple complexes, pyramid complexes
that
in
you
South
can't
America.
even like penetrate with infrared because of the vegetation
Before it
growth.
just crumbles back into the mountain.
Yeah.
Well,
And it just
not even crumbles. I mean, it's just overgrown.
It's overgrown.
Well, it's overgrown, but I'm talking about crumbling.
Right.
Like
Well,
we don't have
There's
to
quite a bit of it that has.
We
Yes.
don't have to say a civilization is great because they used marble.
No.
We can have a great civilization that
Oh,
used
no,
nothing
there
but,
were,
but
uh,
wood
clay.
and dirt, and then they
Yeah.
fell and then they died.
Oh yeah.
The first airplanes.
Look at the Moabi.
The first airplanes were made out of wood and canvas. Okay, a hot air balloon would be dust in 50 years if just left in the desert to rot.
Not even.
Not even.
Less than that. It's canvas.
Flight is not
So-
that hard of a concept to grasp if you have a society that won't burn you for witchcraft for attempting it.
right.
Okay? And I think there have been modern civilizations that have been lost to time, like Tears
Yeah.
in the Rain.
Yeah.
Right.
That
Dust in
It's
the wind.
deep.
so
Dust in the wind.
so in other words,
dude.
we attribute just the same with a lot of religiosity. We will attribute. There's a podcast called The Hardcore History, and he
Yeah.
talks about the Statue of Liberty concept of the end of Planet of the Apes,
Yep.
where he comes upon the Statue of Liberty and realizes, like, oh, I've been here the whole time, and
Yeah.
they blew it up. Oh my God! And then he likens that back to the Germanic tribes that used to come upon the Roman ruins and marvel at the giants who must have built this,
Yeah.
because they did not have a concept of how it may have come to pass.
Well,
We're living
even-
in thatch huts, and these
A-
people built out of stone.
perfect
so they
ex-
couldn't have possibly
a
been
perfect
people.
example-
They had to have been gods.
A perfect example is in World War II. We had hop islands that we used. Where we would use transport planes and use hop planes to get from point A to point B to get goods to ships, everything else. And these hop islands had indigenous people. These indigenous people had never seen a plane.
Right. But they built
Suddenly,
planes.
suddenly these dudes show up, and in order to bring this thing back, they literally start building bamboo planes and shit out on the beach, like
Right.
inviting it to come back.
Right.
So, and that's the thing, though, is that if you're looking at ancient civilizations, if you're looking at a people that have not had that contact, and then they do have that contact, and then suddenly it starts appearing in their cartouches. Things start appearing in their written history,
Or in their
Vedas, in their statuary, that these things are there. It's kind of the same concept.
Right.
And it's the fact that they have seen it, and what is it? It's obviously something that they don't understand. They attribute it to a god, so they build an idol to it to say, come back to us, God.
Right.
You're a fucking badass. What the fuck were you? You
Right.
big-ass buzzard with the dude that jumped out of you? I want to see you again, big-ass buzzard.
Right.
Are you guy with the bird head? Or,
Yeah, guy with the bird head, and you start looking at especially
with bird wings.
You start looking at a lot of the Sumerian text. You look at a lot of the Vedic texts. They talk specifically about nuclear war. I mean, pretty much. You're talking about things that are like laying waste to entire cities, and there are parts in the Gobi Desert near there that are like vitrified glass. The only way you get vitrified glass is through huge heat, like an atomic explosion, shit like that. And this stuff dates back to when they're talking about. Now, we can go through point here.
let's do it. And,
because
let's talk about Libyan desert.
Let's before you go point by point, lay out your not necessarily your contrast.
Yeah.
But what is it that you guys believe as far as
go ahead, Randy.
aliens visiting and enhancing?
Well, let me start off by saying there's not anything in what you laid out there that I disagree with.
Yep. Same
at
here.
all. I think the human timeline is tens of thousands of years off. I think that there is stuff that's discovered all the time, stuff that goes back decades that's been discovered that just cannot be explained by our conventional archaeological
Record.
story. Whatever mainstream archaeology would say, there's stuff that just has no explanation for it, according to them. We've got evidence that pyramids are 10,000 years old, and archaeology, conventional archaeology would say BS. There's no way.
Yeah.
According to our story. Well, why is your story saying that? We've got Sumerian statuary. We've got crap that's handprints on caves that just don't make any sense according to the official party line, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that doesn't make sense. So in order to find the truth, and kind of they've dug their own hole. If this is your version of the truth, and there's a mountain of evidence that says your version of the truth is bunk,
Yeah.
then we've got to find some kind of explanation for it.
It's
Whether it's some kind of that we've been in this place before as a species and we're completely isolated in the cosmos, and what we're the place we're at in history right now has happened before, and we've had similar astounding technologies that we've forgotten about through cataclysm or whatever that's just
Absolutely.
disappeared. Hey, I'm fine with that. I'm whatever. But there's also a multitude of other explanations that are possibly equally as viable, especially when you consider religious texts as allegory, whether it's Christian text or Hindu text or Islamic text or Hebrew text,
Egyptian text,
Aztec text, Sumerian text,
Mayan text.
That now when the Sumerians or Akkadians or whoever you want to call them, at whatever era they're at, depict images of men with wings, or you've got in South America the legends of Viracocha, who is this blonde-haired, blue-eyed dude that shows up wielding lightning and is responsible for this surge in civilization, the likes of which the whole culture.
Oh my God! It just left me from the Mayans. Their serpent god with the wings,
Quetzalcoatl, or something like that.
Yeah.
It was not the Mayans, but the
Aztecs.
Thank you. Who I think came after the Mayans. You've got this Viracocha guy all the way from Mexico down to Tierra del Fuego, who's showing up over the course of thousands of years, blonde hair, blue-eyed, wielding lightning, and creating things like freaking what is it at Lake Titicaca? the huge temple complex there.
Yeah.
You know, how do you explain that? And it could be something along the lines of, oh, wow, you know, we've discovered Viking settlements in New England.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as Minnesota.
The same kind of analogy.
Right.
Okay. Where you've got a civilization that wasn't supposed to be there, but is. Perhaps that it. Or
and
you
have
can
maps.
Or you can find out ultimately that Native Americans are genetically related to Asians. And folks, I'm not a scientist or anything. I'm just reading stuff that I'm just repeating stuff that I've read and giving a layman's thing. But you know, ancient Asian cultures are genetically similar to Native Americans.
Yep.
And we've heard about this whole Bering Strait thing where Asian
Land bridge.
cultures crossed over some ancient land bridge into North America, and they're here, and popular or conventional archaeology denies that. But current research is coming out saying, you know what, maybe that freaking happened.
Yeah.
I don't think that I don't think archaeology denies the land bridge. I think that's pretty pretty
Right, but when you find evidence in South America of the same type of temple building and temple decorations that you find in Asian cultures and even friggin' African cultures, how is that same iconography found half a world away, oceans away, thousands of years ago?
How is it that in
could it be said
Cambodia
that we're all kind of similar creatures, regardless? And whenever we build stuff, it kind of looks the same.
and at about the same time, about the same time in South America and Egypt, they both decided to start building the same kind of buildings, and at the same time, coca leaves are discovered in the bodies of mummies, and the only place that shit grows is South America.
Well, right.
So either there's a trade route between the two, which
trade routes.
Nobody believes exists.
How can you traverse freaking oceans in papyrus boats? Okay,
reed boats, hollowed canoes, but there's all kinds of questions like that. Some of the questions that popped up in my mind that I made my notes on here, Billy. You mentioned sublight travel, and that would be the closest that we could get. However, one concept that's been hugely debated over time is not the fact that they come through light years, but the fact that they actually gravitationally warp space and time to bring 2 points of time closer together.
Wormhole.
This has been a point of science fiction for forever, until recently, with the discovery of gravitational waves. Now, the gravitational waves were put forth by Einstein in his theory of relativity, stating that you could thereby bend space and time and bring 2 points together. Wormhole, like Randy said. That has been a point of theory. It is now scientific fact. It exists. So, therefore, the concept of a future civilization, or even us right now, being able to manipulate gravitational waves to bring 2 points of space-time together exists. So, their leap of space-time travel, their fucking Kessel Run in some shit that's actually a distance, not a fucking time scheme, to go back to a past podcast. Fucking parsec.
Hey, I
It's a
didn't
measure
make it
of
up.
distance. I know you didn't write
make
it.
up. I was just making a quote. All right, George
That
Lucas
shit's
wrote that
scientifically
crap.
wrong. George Lucas.
George Lucas wrote that.
But it's possible now. So to say it's science fiction, to say it doesn't exist, it is possible. We don't have the technology to do it now. Now, granted, if you look at even what the Hubble Space Telescope, much less with our new telescope that's going 1,000,000 miles, literally 1,000,000 miles outside of Earth orbit, is where this thing's going to go, the new Origami Telescope. It's fucking amazing. I saw this show on it on the NASA channel last time I was in town. I had the NASA channel in my room at the hotel, and I just nerded out on that shit for like days on end, watching the last days of the friggin' dude coming down from the, space station, shit like that, from a year in orbit. It was epic. It was awesome. But I saw this show about a new telescope that's going out that's seriously nothing but infrared and beyond. The things that, like, Hubble is an optical telescope, so it's everything that we can see plus a little bit extra. This is actually going to be nothing but from that point on, and they're putting it 1,000,000 miles out so that shit has no heat whatsoever. And like just the concept of putting some shit 1,000,000 miles out in space, and there are 200 actuators on this shit to make it happen. Like, dude, if one goes, look at what happened with Hubble. We had to go up and fix the shit. There ain't no fixing it 1,000,000 miles out. But the fact is, we are very young. We are on the outer edge of the Big Bang. Most of the concentration of stars that exist in that dark zone that we can't even fucking see right now. So whenever you're talking about Goldilocks zone and, my God, Drake's equation, the equation of how many stars there are, how many galaxies there are, and how many possible Goldilocks zones there are that could support life, we would be on the very outer rim in a very young civilization. So most of them that would exist would be smooth 1,000,000 years older than us.
Right. Well, I think even, what's his name? Stephen Hawking has said that, if we were visited by any type of...
We need to fear them.
Right now, if
we need
were
to
visited
fear them.
by anybody, it would be in the form of, like, an AI probe.
Yeah.
That's just gone out to the universe and is...
checking us out.
Artificial intelligence, because the progenitor race has died out.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I don't know. Here's my thing. Okay,
I'll be right back.
We are, and I come from a religious background.
Same here.
As do you, and Billy too, I believe.
Absolutely. We used to have some rousing conversations.
We are so quick, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying we're so quick to accept our religious text. I'm not saying anything bad about our religious text, or anybody else's religious text. The fact that there are superhuman, and I don't mean like superhuman is not the word, supernatural entities,
supernatural experiences,
supernatural entities in existence.
Absolutely.
Go look in the Bible. Angels and demons.
Yep.
Okay? These are beings that are not human. They're not human.
Yeah.
But they're not God.
It's not even in the Bible. I mean, they talk about angels in the Quran. They talk about angels in Vedic texts. They talk about these things
images
everywhere.
of them in every culture going back to the beginning of time.
And funny thing is, I was just talking with Jason Knight about this, the Christian DJ, who was just on Talking Sound again. I was like, it's funny. If you look at the movie The Prophecy, he absolutely says it right. Like, when an angel shows up, get ready for some havoc to be wreaked. Get ready, other than the announcement of a couple of births.
Yeah, crap's going down.
Most of the time, crap's going down if an angel shows up, dude. If an angel shows up, like, God is not happy and the universe is not happy with you right now, and you need to just go that way, dude.
So I'm not saying one's right or the other.
No.
But I'm saying that we're more willing to accept something like that on faith than we are to look at stuff that is tens of thousands of years in the archaeological record.
That's it.
And say something doesn't fit here.
Exactly.
These ancient cultures were depicting something they didn't understand.
Yes.
And what was it?
Well, and the fact is, we've gotten to a point as a society with science is absolute, and science is not absolute. Look at the sheer fact of the theory of evolution. Who does not teach that or believe that as fact biologically? The fact is, it is still a theory. It's still an active theory. They do not have all the skeletons to prove it. They don't have all the DNA to prove it. It's not absolutely there, so it's still a theory of evolution.
Well,
it's not the fact yet.
It's not a law, but it's supported by enough evidence that it is pretty much.
But it's and not enough evidence to not make it still a working theory. It's not the fact of evolution.
Well, that is.
It's still a theory.
It's not a law.
It's not a law.
Right.
It's not a biological law yet. So, and at that point, it's the fact of it's a theory. And to discount things in science is to discount things like the world is flat.
Well, here's the thing.
It's flat.
Science is just as much a religion as mainstream science or conventional science is just as much approached with religious fervor as religion is.
Absolutely.
And, there's scientists that'll say there's just absolutely no way, even though the evidence is biting them in the ass.
Yep.
And,
well,
here's my thing. When I look at stone carvings that are obviously in the shape of aircraft, okay, that are aerodynamically
not even
airworthy,
stone carvings,
okay,
gold idols that are made in the shape of F-4 intruders that fly. Like they've made scale models of them with motors and they
I'm not
fly.
saying they're aliens. I'm not saying they're human technology from 5,000 or 10,000 years ago. I'm saying there's stuff we can't explain.
Yes.
Well, absolutely.
Okay. And
I agree with you on that.
A prime example of that, one of the points you brought up was things like that. And one of the notes I made was, as far as time where you're young, most civilizations in the universe would be much older than us, which we brought up. And on top of that was what Randy was talking about just now. And a note that I made was the Nazca civilization. You look at the Nazca lines, and the artisan of it, and even the scope of it as a geometric project, you would have to have some sort of surveying for, specifically overhead surveying. Now, for years they said it was UFOs, things like that. I did a great report on it in junior high or in high school that I piggybacked from Randy and went on crazy beyond that. And it was fantastic. Now the fact is they've actually found pottery that depicts balloons in the Nazca Valley from this time. So quite obviously the Nazca people had balloon technology. Number one, let's grasp the fact that the fucking Nazca people had balloon technology.
Right.
We didn't rediscover that shit till the Civil War. Shortly before in France, it was exhibited and used in the Civil War to great acclaim and brought about in America. Now, once again, the Nazca people had fucking balloons. Like, they were made out of papyrus, shit like that, and they used a fire in a basket, in a pot to heat shit. But it's depicted on pottery. It's there. We know that the Nazca people had some sort of overhead surveillance. That technology in and of itself was lost. So we know that exists. We know that lost technology exists. Now, the concept of the transistor was really what came around right up around 47, right up around the time of Roswell. And that's where we get into possible, not just found technology, but reverse engineered technology. Now, Moore's law will point period tell us the moment that the transistor exists, period. I mean, Moore's law directly correlates to the transistor itself. And it's a principle in electronic physics that Moore's law states that every 2 years, the number of transistors in a circuit can double. So, from the point of one transistor existing, from that point on, 2 years from then, you can have a circuit with 2. 2 years from then, you can have a circuit with 4. It's doubling.
On and on.
On and on and on. So from 47 on, you're talking about, hey, look at what we have in the palm of our hand right now.
To 16-bit to 64-bit.
Now, granted,
or 32-bit and 64-bit.
Granted, you have to remember that these are research laboratories. it's not in their vested interest necessarily most of the time to grasp the end result. Because once you grasp the end result, you are no longer funded for research.
Which brings me to that, financials.
So you get into the financial situation of what was going on at the time and everything else, and even the technology that was hidden, the technology that we know that was hidden, even at Area 51, that we know as of right now, it is a declassified base. It exists. There was a fucking lawsuit in the Clinton administration from people that were damaged from toxic things that were burned in pits there, from like downed drones and shit like that. So the place exists. It was there. It was the home of the Skunk Works from Lockheed Martin. A prime example is the F-117. Now, a point that you posited is oddly enough shared by my former employer, and a huge theme in the new X-Files. Huge theme in the new X-Files. The fact that, okay, these things exist. They are not alien technology. They are actually the government using the guise of alien technology, which is already a social meme, which they have created and pumped up to this point so that they can use their dark programs to test their technology, test gene splicing, test all kind of stuff, and use known technology that they used in programs like MKUltra to reprogram people and to hide their memories to create the fucking abductee scenario. Boom.
Right.
There it is. Fucking bow tie.
So,
Bing.
so we're not disagreeing.
Curl the ribbon.
We're not disagreeing.
There's the present. That is an absolute scenario. However, like Randy posits, and like I'm pointing out, is the fact of we have a long-running history of this. We have a long-running oral tradition, and not just oral, but pictograph and written tradition. If you go back to Babylonian times, if you go back to Sumerian times, these people were talked about. They even talked about their people coming from the stars, the dog star. Sirius, no doubt, which is one of the places that's been posited where life could possibly exist. One of the things that we talked about in that lost episode was actually Nibiru, the supposed planet X that was talked about by Zacharias Sitchin years ago in the book Chariots of the Gods, stuff like that. Talking about how we were actually... Pause.
Go ahead. You want to try this IPA?
Yes.
As it gets warm? All right, I'm going to crack this
Do
open.
it.
Dudes and beer, guys.
That's it.
And beer.
And beer. So, here's this beautiful IPA supplied by a buddy of Billy's. We love you. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian.
What IPA,
Props.
What IPA is this?
This is Yellow Rose.
All right.
IPA is my favorite.
IPA is some yummy stuff.
Here, let me switch you over then, because I...
So you look at these things. You look at the fact of throughout history this has existed. It's interesting to me the way that we are utterly dismissive. And I'll come out and say it. The way that we're utterly dismissive about Bigfoot. Just because there's no scientific evidence for a species does not mean it doesn't exist.
Well,
we thought the coelacanth was extinct for years. Come to find out, they exist in droves now.
Well, strangely enough, you mentioned a thing like Bigfoot, and it's not so much that... Like,
oh, God, that is fucking delicious.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
You mentioned Bigfoot, and I always find it funny that both the gorilla and the orangutan were both Bigfoots of their time.
Yes, they were. They were mythological creatures.
That's good.
In India, they spoke of the gentleman of the forest.
Yep.
Right.
And the English were like, you guys are crazy. We've already discovered all the animals. And then they discovered orangutans.
Yeah.
And orangutans, even wild, are not very violent. You can approach them, and they're reclusive, and they'll run away, but they're not. They won't attack.
Yeah.
And so whenever they finally found the orangutans, it was a big thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with the silverbacks. They were complete. Like they used to.
There have been numerous
in
species
the 1800s.
like
they used to kill a silverback and ship them back to America, and like send them like on traveling circuses, as they rotted and tell them there was some kind of weird human human monster thing. And so my contention, and I guess you guys aren't not like.
And you want to talk about forgotten technology?
Randy's position in our last podcast was, in the way that I gathered it was,
because we were all pretty soused by the end of that.
Not our last one, but the lost one.
The Lost podcast,
yes.
The Lost
which
podcast.
we were really soused at the end.
I'm not saying it was aliens, but aliens.
Well, the thing in that podcast was that you guys were both extremely pro alien, and all of the points that I made out at the beginning of this one were all of the reasons why I'm not saying there's not aliens. I'm not saying that if we fly to a different planet that we're not going to find something.
Billy.
However, my contention is that if there is something that has the capacity to fly from wherever they are to here,
or warp space and time to get here.
Either way.
or a sidetrack from a universe that's right next door to ours.
Yep.
So we're
if they're interdimensional.
You don't know. Who knows?
See,
Who knows?
And you were speaking of religious texts, and in the same Lost podcast, you were asking me what do I think about this? You were talking. I was like lost technology and cataclysm.
Yep.
And the joke was Noah. And
right.
You were talking about how religious texts say certain things, and we're so quick to accept them because of a religious background. And my contention is that I believe wholeheartedly, without the necessity for a deity, that the religious texts are probably pretty true as far as what happened, but they're filtered through a lens of both political and social necessity, to where if you break it down to what it actually says and look at it literally, and I'm not a literalist, we've had these conversations, but if you look at
loudly,
if you look at it, what it says literally, and then kind of dial it back and use some common sense, you say, that's a pretty good possibility.
It's a pretty damn good point.
And so like when the thing with Noah, okay, so we have embryos of probably every species. We probably have embryos of it in some sort of stasis somewhere.
Yep.
In a laboratory. Think Jurassic Park, or just think conservation, study, whatever. Just a catalog. We've got all of this shit. Then, boom. North Korea is about to launch those missiles. We're all going to die. We're going underground. Somebody grab that catalog of everything that exists and protect it.
Okay.
And whether it was a boat floating around on the ocean after a flood, whether it was a modern super laboratory that we can't even conceive of that was lost to time, the whole concept of Noah saving specimens of everything he could, not necessarily that everything that he had on the boat survived afterwards.
Mm-hmm. It did.
And not even saying, and again, like the whole young Earth theory, like dinosaurs millions, fuck that, dude. I'm like, dinosaurs were extinct. We're talking about like,
we ain't talking Flintstones
in human history.
Yeah.
Right.
And that ark lands on the mountain, and he's like, oh crap. No, we're not talking like global, worldwide with flood. We're talking about in a space where civilization in this place where this guy lived is wiped out, and he's the lone survivor, and he's responsible for waking all of this shit up to repopulate whatever's around. That is not too hard to believe, because you know that we have it now.
Okay, go ahead, because I know your point's my point. Do it. I'm in your head.
My biggest question mark amongst all of that, and amongst everything that was said before, my biggest question mark is going back thousands of years, and in every text, and in even tribes here in the last 50 years or so, every single one of them point to the sky and say they came from there.
Not just that. Not
here.
Not just that.
From an island
To
in the middle
Billy's-
of the Atlantic.
to Billy's point-
they came from there.
Okay, and to
Whether
further
it's Sirius or the freaking Pleiades
to further reinforce that is the fact of what Billy was just saying with the story of Noah. Every single one of these same people, you're talking Indian, you're talking Babylonian, you're talking Native American, you're talking South American, all of them at the same time have the story of the same flood.
Right. A global cataclysm, whatever.
So it wasn't isolated to that area.
But they all say our gods, our people that gave us
Gave
this
us the knowledge.
gave us this information, gave us this technology, whatever, tens of thousands of years ago came from there, and they pointed to the sky, and that's where they came from. And I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's just like the evidence of every culture across the planet having the same type of cataclysmic story. Every one of them has the same kind of origin story.
Exactly.
Even the Bible.
Yep.
Okay.
2 of them concurrently.
Okay.
As a matter of fact,
So
from 2 different civilizations.
I'm not saying
back
that's
to back.
the fact. I'm saying the preponderance of evidence, even if it's allegorical, does
Points
not
to that.
originate here. It
That's it.
originates elsewhere
That's it.
and comes here.
Now, one of the things that Billy was talking about was found technology, lost technology. One of the points I wanted to bring up, and I'm going to take you right back to high school, my friend. And this is exactly how found technology, lost technology works. The modern craze in advertising and in everything else is GIF sequences. Do you remember the first time you ever saw a GIF sequence?
Oh, yeah.
What was it?
Watching porn at your house.
Yep. That was the beginning of internet porn. Look at internet porn now, and look at where internet advertising has finally fucking caught up to.
Mm-hmm.
Porn was way ahead of the curve.
It always is. Well,
They were the ones that won the war between VHS and Beta. I mean, VHS became the home format because of porn, because it was cheap and easy and available.
say what you want as far as it being kind of
But-
a taboo topic. However, our basic instinct is to reproduce and pass on
Absolutely.
our genetics.
No, you know how much of a Freudian I am. Absolutely.
No, our basic instinct is to pass along our genetics.
Yeah.
It's in fruit flies, it's in freaking alligators, and it's in humans.
We're animals.
It's not a matter of like, haha, that's saucy or whatever.
No.
But really and truly, I mean, anything that benefits the human condition of getting your rocks off is going to take precedence over just about any other thing.
How do we get from aliens to porn?
Because I'm
working on
talking
it.
about found technology, lost technology.
Okay.
GIFs are something that is huge right now. As far as things that are memes, stuff like that, they're GIF sequences, everything else.
Right.
GIFs got their start in internet porn. Back in the days where it was like dial up and download some shit from a community bulletin board. You would get it.
Captain
You
Janeway.
would, you would be mine. Exactly. And it was literally a sequence of like 9 images that were put together that was like that was porn. It was like, holy crap, dude, they're totally doing it. And that's like 8 pictures. That's dope
And
as
then
fuck.
after a while, you're like, man, they're still doing it.
They're still doing it.
After a while,
like
you're
that
man.
dude's rock solid, yo. Like that guy's a machine. This has been going for 35 minutes. I'm still watching. What the hell? And look at internet advertising now. It's finally caught up to porn. It was a lost technology. GIF sequences went away for years. And then now it is what every fucking banner ad is. It's what every fucking meme is. All kinds of shit. It's all over the place. And it's a technology that for almost 20 years went away.
That's still not found. I mean, that was 20 years.
I'm
we've
just
got
saying.
Simpsons
Look
episodes
at
that are older than that.
but that's just it. Look at that technology and the impact that it has on advertising and everything else, and the fact that it was there. It's always existed. It just wasn't used.
Well, yeah.
So you look at the fact of there are suppressed technologies, even the F-117. I was looking it up earlier just to make sure my facts were straight. And the F-117 Nighthawk, the stealth, the original stealth fighter, the odd geometric shaped thing that came out, was first used in the war with Noriega to take Noriega down. It dropped like 2 or 3 bombs, something like that. It was like, haha, new stealth bomber. What the fuck? It had been flying for 20 years. And been in development before that. So you look at things like that and Moore's Law married together. And the fact is, yes, our government has a huge available technology to them. Even the NSA data center deals in yottabytes. And to give you a concept, just in physical mass of a yottabyte, all right, if you were to take a 128 gig SD card, all right, a high-capacity SD card, 128 gig, and stack them, it would fill the volume of the Great Pyramid of Giza to be 1 yottabyte.
Mm-hmm.
That's like humanity has not yet created a yottabyte of information.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much it is. And that's what they're calculating on. Beyond that.
Right.
So you look at that, and it's got to come from somewhere. Now, granted, Moore's Law takes into account a lot of that, but there was a jump start at some point that happened with technology that was lost.
Well, I'm still of the contention. You mentioned Moore's Law says every 2 years technology will double. And that's
well, not that technology will double, but that the number of transistors in an existing circuit will double.
Right.
So basically, like the speed of your processor will double every 2 years.
Right.
Now that's not what's released to you,
but and again, and I mentioned, that we haven't been visited by in a mainstream sort of way.
Yeah.
But I also, I know what it means, and you know what it means, and this is dialing back to a completely different thing than but if you sit down and you start working out projections in a Moore's Law sort of situation, you start working out projections, and you say, okay, and if technology progresses the way that it has, then we can expect a doubling of capacity in a certain period of time. There's going to be some supervisor, some overlord that says, okay, throw $1 million on it and work these fuckers 18 hours a day and triple that.
Yeah. Now,
and that happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because when
and
your
nobody's
goal
discounting
is,
that.
whether it's a gun to your head or a nice bonus at the end of the year,
it's just
you're gonna find that. And,
okay.
and if you hit a wall where you can't, they're gonna throw more resources at it and bring in smarter people than you.
Here's the problem.
So
the Moore's Law and the discovery of the transistor and the creation of the first laser, the math does not fucking add up. For transistors and power and everything else, the math doesn't add up for it to be actual Moore's Law. Like, hey, here's a transistor, bam, it exists. Here's a tube. Now, 2 years later, we can add 2 tubes. 2 years later, we can add.
And that brings me to
4
that
tubes.
point of, like,
2 years later, we can add 8. The math doesn't add up for there to be a physical laser years later. It doesn't add up for there to be microwave a few years later.
But what if, and because YouTube is such a phenomenon, and but what if there was some kid out there, and I'm going to go way, way off the rails here, but what if there's some kid out there who figures out that there's some special sort of rubber that makes square wheels move faster than round ones?
Sure. Hey, television was invented by a high school kid.
And
literally.
So everybody's looking at it and being like, a square wheel, just the friction quotient does not work. And he's like, watch this, test it. It works.
Yep.
And with
those
half
things
the
have happened.
energy, you can move twice the mass, twice as far, twice as fast with something that we've never even thought of.
Sure.
So we've got laws written for round wheels. We've got laws written for round wheels.
Absolutely.
But square wheels quadruple that math. And so therefore that law is obsolete.
The
But we're still
problem
working
is,
with round wheels.
I guarantee you, the square wheel came first. I guarantee you, some motherfucker tried a triangle wheel, tried an octagonal wheel,
No, but
tried
you know what I'm
everything
talking
down.
about. That's why I went so far.
Oh yeah. But I
Like
mean,
there's-
just by sheer evolution of geometry.
Well, no.
It shows you from triangle to square to circle.
But no. What
So-
I'm talking about is you see you can do it in a video game. What if there's a square wheel? And so for the first 100 miles an hour, there's
Yeah.
such a drag and resistance.
Yeah.
However, once you hit that 100-mile-an-hour mark, that square wheel fucking expands and turns into some kind of a super oval that just really.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, like, we never really tried it, and we
Yeah, it turns into the He-Man attack tank that's all
we've
fucking
certainly never
wobbly
tried
and
it at
shit.
those sorts of speeds. But once it actually hits that mark, then everything we've ever thought about round wheels is obsolete.
Well,
and so therefore, you're talking about transistors. Well, as far as I know, transistors is a vintage technology. Like,
But it's not. Here's the thing: a microchip is made up of billions of transistors.
Right.
It's a transistor is literally a switch. It's on off, whether it's positive,
Well, of
negative, or
course.
negative to positive. One
I'm
of the
talking
two.
about a
PNP
vacuum
or
tube
NPNP.
from like a vintage vacuum tube.
Still
where
a
they're
transistor.
Well, it is. However, there's been all kinds of advancements in both energy and other technology.
I'm talking about
to make them.
I'm talking about the creation of the first solid-state transistor, as GE created it before Sony got a hold of it, made the first transistor radio, and totally blew away the American market when GE should have had it 5 years before. They had the transistor. Between that point and laser, the Moore's math does not add up. And between that point and supercomputer, between that point, it just... There were leaps and bounds that happened that if you listen to people like Philip Corsi
Do
and
you
stuff
want
like
to
that,
know why that happened?
I would love
Because-
to know why it actually happened.
Because
but
people wanted better porn than GIFs.
I'm with you.
I'm serious.
No,
Absolutely.
I am. I wanted better porn than Jim.
Yeah.
And that all came with coding and everything else, but... I mean, you remember that computer. It had a fucking turbo button.
You know what I'm talking about.
It had a turbo button, for crying out loud. And now we're talking about more information than like 85 of those computers in the palm of our hand.
Yep.
You know, and the Moore's law for that exists, but the Moore's law between the existence of the transistor and lasers and stuff like that just isn't truly there. And for me, that's a big leap, just technologically. And it makes a lot more sense whenever you're talking about people like Philip Corsi, who supposedly was there with Roswell and took the bodies to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, stuff like that, and saw the technology, saw fiber optics in the craft. Saw these amazing things where the pilot was integrated with the aircraft.
Right.
Had a heads-up display, that kind of stuff. That rapidly became the mainstay of our Air Force. And if you look at even the leap from, hey, we have a Sabre, to look at what the fuck we're doing with guided missiles and shit like that. It was pretty phenomenal.
My whole thing on this topic is, okay, whether you're organized religion, whether you're the scientific establishment, whether you're archaeological elites, if you're going to tell me this is the paradigm that I have to operate in, then you better make damn sure
You
that
obey the rules, too.
everything matches up to your paradigm. And when it doesn't,
Account for it.
You better have an explanation.
Yeah.
And your explanation better make sense, and it better operate under the paradigm which you established.
Yep.
Because if it doesn't, then I call bullshit.
Yep.
And I don't like to curse on this podcast.
I'm not a
but I
huge
call
fan.
Drink
bullshit.
your drink.
Whether
If you
it's,
drink by G's.
you know, if what you're telling me does not operate under your paradigm,
Then
then you
It's
know what?
null and void.
Your
It's
paradigm
null and void.
does not make sense to me.
exactly, and that's just
And-
it. I can't accept it,
So
because,
I'm
I
not
said,
saying-
the Earth was flat. The Earth was fucking flat.
Right.
The Earth was flat till what? 500 years ago? 600 years ago?
Not really.
Close to it. Shortly before Columbus.
The elites didn't believe that.
Well, the elites may not have, but people were.
When
being
was
smart.
Magellan? Google it. When was Magellan? He's the first circumnavigator.
No, Magellan was not circumnavigating a flat Earth. Neither was
No,
Columbus.
because you can't circumnavigate a flat Earth by definition. Circumference requires a circular
No,
sphere.
even Columbus was not sailing into.
He wasn't sailing into oblivion. He was using maps from the Orient and other people. Absolutely. It was a known trade route. It was not anything mysterious when Columbus... And Columbus didn't even come to fucking North America. He came to the fucking islands off North America.
So the whole point is
And that's from
that
United Columbus.
whether it's lost technology, whether it's refound technology, whether it's alien gifted technology, the whole paradigm that we've been sold
is
is
wrong.
It's
false.
false.
Absolutely.
False.
It's not just wrong, it's false.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
It's purposefully false.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's for whatever reason, whatever the reason is, I don't know. I don't pretend to know, but
It's
but
to sell tickets to fucking museums.
But it's obviously
Goddamn fuckers.
I'll tell you why.
it's all, every single bit of it is false, and I believe at my core that it's falsified as a means of control.
I agree
Yes.
with that.
And it's to keep us from whatever our millennial year old heritage is.
And knowledge.
Whether
Yeah.
it's here, originating from
That's
here,
why I love my brother.
or originating from out
Just cross
there,
it off.
it doesn't matter. What matters is the truth, whether it comes from here or out there. I don't care. I want to know the truth. And if you're feeding me bullshit, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I
I'm not
agree with
gonna,
that.
I'm not going to accept it.
Well, and how many times? Look at just in our lifetime, gentlemen. Just in our lifetime. Let's look at when Watson and Crick discovered fucking DNA, and just in our lifetime, the understanding of DNA and where it is, and the fact that like the matrix encoding of it itself is just almost infinite. It's infinite. It's almost a piece of like computer coding in and of itself, the way it's created. And the fact that there is no intelligent design behind that. I mean, my argument for that for ages. We used to sit back and talk about it for good knows how long over ales, beers, all kinds of stuff. But
Malt liquor.
yeah, yes sir.
Some malt
Yes,
liquor.
sir. Peach schnapps, all kinds of shit. Fucking-
Mickey's.
Yep. But once again, it's one of those situations to me that it rings true throughout all cultures. It's always been there. It's something that is not new. Like Randy said, all cultures say that they come from the stars. That's where they came from. And granted, the concept of panspermia and the fact that even DNA came from another point,
no.
or that
Panspermia is bullshit. No, I don't buy it.
Well, there is also
that.
the fact that if you think about it as people, as humans, okay, so
Now-
well, hold on. We'll
Go ahead.
You're talking about panspermia and this whole
Yeah.
there is a very human drive and need to feel as if you are the epitome of
absolutely.
of creation.
That's
Creation
that.
being whatever it is. You're the,
I'm better than you, but
you're the greatest
whatever, dude.
generation. We're America. Wave the flag. Fuck yeah! All the other people on the planet are doing it wrong, and everybody else in every
Pretty
other
much.
culture thinks the exact same thing about everybody else. And when you say like, "Oh, did we come from up there?" Well, look at literally the way that godhood works. Is in a society, whether it's 100 people big or 1 million people big or 300 million people big, you have a godhead. You have a leader.
Panspermia
And-
is the concept
and
that we were seeded here by another
And that's
race.
all possible.
No,
it's
not
just
necessarily.
interstellar pollen. That's okay.
Right.
Like that's not
Yeah.
not really that hard to grasp. But once you reach a certain apex of, I believe everybody's paying attention to me, and they're all wondering why it's not raining. And I'm like, I'll be right back. Shit, I don't know. Like, why are you the big dog? Well,
I don't know though.
Well,
think about
universe-
psychology though.
the universe-
Would you rather say I thought of this myself, or would you rather say somebody gave it to me?
Well,
Now,
of course.
here's
It's not my fault.
Here's a big question.
That's what I was
one
told.
of Billy's big questions was, why are we worthy? Why are we worthy of this? It's not necessarily the fact that we are worthy. One of the big points that has been brought up by people for years is the fact that this shit didn't start happening till we cracked the atom.
No.
Till we discovered U-32.
No. Go back to.
I'm talking about alien appearances here, things like that. I'm talking
alien
about in a modern
appearances
concept.
5,000 years
I
ago.
know about the alien appearances 5,000 years ago. I'm just taking it from the point of 1945 and on.
47.
47 was Roswell.
Right.
Absolutely. But before that was the cracking of the atom, shit like that. And the discovery of that was what really rang the bell, dong, of intergalactic, hey, these people have evolved to a
No,
point
I
that
think
we need
that's
to
what
keep
brought
their
them
eyes
back.
on. Exactly.
I think that's what.
And that's
brought
what
them back.
most people have said, is that at that point they rang the fact of, okay, now it's a different thing. They've rediscovered things that have long gone away. And
this
we
is
need
the
to
reason
keep
they're
them.
not there anymore.
We need to keep, exactly, and
Yes. I
we
don't
need to
know.
keep a close eye on things.
You look at
What
at
if it was just us?
And what if it's an interdimensional version of us that,
Or a future
has-
version of
or a
us.
future version of us that has seen what's happened? Like, there's quite a preponderance of
I'm not
theory
saying,
out there
it's
saying
aliens.
that.
It could be us.
Absolutely.
I'm saying that there is enough evidence in my mind, historically and written, and freaking cylinder seals and temple paintings,
Yep.
and all kinds of crap.
That
to point to-
you don't spend the time doing that for a whole lot of nothing.
Right. And that there is, who knows? The angels we read about in the Bible and in other texts, not just the Bible,
Yep.
but in other texts,
Like I said, the Quran, angels are mentioned.
m-
You're beeping over there, bro.
yeah, it's my time shift. It's coming.
Need to make your portal.
Right. Momentarily, I'm going with John Titor.
Fucking sliders and shit.
I'm about to slide with John Titor here. We got to go. Sorry. Whoop.
crypto would it be? If he
But that's the exact same technology that we're talking about.
It disappeared.
That was-
disappeared, and we have both
I
been
mean,
like,
what the fuck?
"Do we have to clean this shit
Oh
up?"
my God!
It's not my
he
house.
He was right when I was a kid. He's an alien from another world.
Take care of my children. I gotta go.
I gotta peace out, y'all.
And he's like, "Why aren't you home?" I'm like, "God, you didn't see that shit." I don't think we're going to be hanging out with Manny much anymore.
Deuces, y'all. I gotta go. Time ship calls.
Fucking Kim Jong-un pushes the button and we're all toast.
Douche. Goosh.
Nothing
South by
survives
Southwest.
but this
Nuke.
podcast, and everybody's like, those guys are onto something.
Oh crap! Yeah, we'll be like the equivalent of the wild stallion.
Right? The podcast that ended the world. That's it. That's it. Having a little Santos here.
Well, dude, and
But, I mean, it's funny to me that, like Randy said, it goes over cultures over time, and it's an overarching theme, and the same thing happens. And like there are carvings from the 18th century up around the time of the Great Plague, stuff like that. That it's just or 17th century rather, because it was the 1600s that shit happened. But it's like one of the points that you asked was, why are we worthy? And like I said, it appeared right up around the time of our discovery of at least the phenomenon. And Foo Fighters, all that shit happened right up around the time of our discovery of the breaking of the atom. And you look at stuff like even Bob Lazar, who worked at Area 51 supposedly, which we know now is a real place. He said that the crafts operated off ununpentium, which is an element that was yet to be discovered. And recently, that element number that he said for ununpentium has been discovered, and it's there. And it was recently used as the source of the energy for the crafts in X-Files and stuff like that. And we talked about it before it was actually like discovered, and it was pretty badass. But you look at stuff like that. You look at even the discovery of gravitational waves and the possibilities. You look at the beginnings of CERN, whenever that started. And one of the things that they said might be possible was actually connecting between interdimensional portals. That they may actually create like a macrocosmic black hole in that spot to be able to connect with another point in the universe. And whenever you're talking about that kind of technology actually existing, and scientists saying, it's a possibility, it may happen.
And okay, so
that goes right to the point of the U.S. government at the time of the hydrogen bomb saying, hey, may ignite all the hydrogen in the atmosphere. Let's find out. Click.
Well,
and it's some pretty scary stuff.
It is. And bringing me back to my point, you're talking about CERN. And
Yep.
That's a. Let's put it like this. Let's say right now, where is CERN? In Sweden?
It's throughout a few countries in Europe. It's right at the cusp of a few.
No,
It's
I'm
through
talking
part
about
of
the
France.
collider.
It's through part of Switzerland, France. It's through a few different places right there.
All it would take is a fucking drone to drop a bomb on that bitch and have everything set back to the 70s.
Well,
And again, that's the kind of people we are. As
well,
bad as it sounds.
yeah.
And so again, in my position, I'm not saying that these things don't exist and that
Yeah.
they're not possible.
Absolutely.
Point at the very, very beginning. Why have not we met these other creatures?
Who's to say that we have not?
Well,
Is the question, because through many cultures they have said that they have.
they've said that they've met people from the stars, and that's fair and that's fine.
And like I said, there's more than enough not just cultural evidence, but evidence amongst people from many cultures in recent time of people experiencing the abductee experience, stuff like that. Now, granted, there is the posited fact of, is it government aircraft that we know we have? Like I said, the F-117 first revealed in the fight against Noriega, used famously in the first Gulf War. It was flying for 20 years before that in experimental flights.
Right.
And it's a triangular craft. It's black. It literally appears the size of a fucking sparrow on a radar cross section. So to be seen by normal things,
one of the main points in the Fermi paradox is that they destroy themselves before they're ever capable.
Okay.
And
here's the thing:
we're capable,
and we've been capable before. Like we've said in past history,
but
it's
we
existed.
argue about finances. We argue about housing. We argue about so many things, and
that's the nature of humanity. Though, is the minutia.
Well, it is, and I'm not discounting that. What I'm talking about is, all it would take is one rogue, remote-controlled airplane to destroy the collider. And if they're on the cusp of interdimensional travel,
hey, all it's going to take is one remote-controlled airplane to do some.
With a shoe bomb drops a 747 on the main point of the collider and kills some scientists. Then where are we? We're back where we were.
Okay, here's a weird fact for you.
There's a lot of people.
Look up the number of NASA scientists that have mysteriously died over the last many years.
Yep. There's a lot of people with a lot of religious fervor that would not have this happen.
Yeah.
And I, again, when I said if there's an alien craft, like if we were to like be like, oh hey man, we're in control of the UFO, let's go fly off to Series 9 and fucking land on planet Earth 2.
Fuck yeah, man!
Where the fuck would we go? We'd be like, man, that fountain looks cool,
right?
Hey, those are some ruins I'd like to explore. Oh man, those fuckers talk funny.
Yeah.
Like, would we not just be like, this is cool shit?
Well, now the question comes
bounce around like a bee and be like, hey, what's up,
the
Mr.
question,
Clinton?
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing,
300
Billy.
million people?
Here's the question: is you do talk about things like that, but what about the recent experiences of scientists in the International Space Station that hear strange music? Things like that. What about the fact of whenever they landed on the moon that it sounded like a bell ringing, like it was hollow? There are structures that are supposedly on the moon. There's all kinds of evidence for it, and it's really interesting and odd that it's there.
I think we were there before.
And where did it come from? It had to come from someone other than us. We were the first motherfuckers there, right?
Yeah, but I think it was us.
And there's also in alignment with your question is the question that is ongoing of what about the secret U.S. space program? Not a lot of people realize. Like, I actually own, nerdily enough, a copy of the Space Shuttle Operator's Manual. And if you look at it, it shows all the missions.
So the Challenger survived?
No, there is that theory. There is that theory, absolutely.
And there's a teacher on Mars?
There is that theory.
I'm sorry.
But I'm with you. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. But it is interesting that most of the missions happen under auspice of the DoD. They happen under auspice of the Department of Defense. These guys don't even get their orders as to what's happening for their launch and why they're going into space until they're in space with the space shuttle. And this is supposedly a civilian program. So, number one, why are these things under the auspice of the DoD? You got to wonder about space weapons platforms, all that kind of stuff. And there's been a posited notion for years that there is a DoD space program, that there has been a program existing outside of NASA for years that has further explored the moon, that has set up bases there, that has done all kinds of stuff.
I wouldn't doubt that for a second.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hear you say that because it's not an absolutely inane or insane idea, even though there are international protocols for that. There is actually a UN ambassador for oh my God, what am I thinking? Extraterrestrial
it's like
contact. It's a lady from Korea.
No, she's from Malaysia.
Malaysia.
And it's like our UN
intergalactic ambassador.
Intergalactic ambassador or some crap like that.
So the first person that gets to meet the aliens is somebody who talks funny? That's fucked up.
You talk funny.
Vote for Trump.
I talk funny. Bitches.
You build a wall or some shit.
6 aisle.
Hey, here's my thing on this whole thing. On this whole thing is that, here we are in 2016.
Yep.
We've got thousands of years of history, written, oral, on the internet. We've got so much stuff that we can cull through that we might call the truth, that could be someone else's truth, it could be our truth. We've got scientific evidence, we've got, religious belief, we've got all kinds of stuff. And whether it's, something out there or something that's been here for thousands of years, this Atlantis that Plato talked about.
Göbekli Tepe is one of my favorite ones.
We've got here, we have an immense well of awe and wonder to draw from when we look at archaeological stuff that's out there. Göbekli Tepe.
Because that one was apparently intentionally buried in the sand.
I mean, there's just so much stuff out there that we cannot explain. And it won't be discovered in my lifetime. Probably not, or answered in my lifetime. Or in my kid's lifetime, maybe. But, I'm one of those guys that looks, I hear all of this stuff about, this whole, apocalyptic doom and gloom about, the mark of the beast and, barcoding this and, all of this stuff. And I look at, and it sounds weird, but I look at Star Trek.
Yep.
Okay? I look forward 200 years into this fiction that was created by this guy named Gene Roddenberry. And I look at this global society that goes out into the stars to discover a universe full of wonder. And I go, you know what? If we're ever going to make it there, look at all the shit that's come out of that.
Oddly enough, their seal looks just like the UN seal.
Cell phones and tricorders and all kinds of stuff that's becoming scientific fact. Mm-hmm. That, in my opinion, that ideal is our heritage.
Exactly.
If we're ever going to become one of the membership of whatever is out there, we have to transcend all this crap and look for the truth, whatever it is.
Exactly.
And the only way we'll ever get there is, yes, transcending borders, transcending currencies, transcending political affiliations, left or right or whatever. We have to become true. We have to become true in our search for truth and search for knowledge. Forget what I believe or what you believe, what is true. Mm-hmm. And when we transcend all of that, we'll become one of them out there. And our whole journey in history is to get to that point. And that's what it's all. It doesn't matter if it's aliens or what, or whatever has put us here, or whatever religious fanaticism we happen to envelop ourselves in. It's what transcends us, and that's the way I think of it. If my smartphone is going to give me unlimited access, I firmly believe we live in probably the most glorious time in all of human history.
Absolutely.
Recorded human history, where I can access everything that's ever been written and ever been known by a human being through some stupid little device that I hold in my hand.
Yep.
That's a freaking miracle to me. But it's a miracle that can be easily corrupted, easily bastardized, easily abused, but it's something that can freaking transcend us into something that we've never known before.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it all this transhumanism crap and all this stuff.
That's what I was about to bring up.
Everything is a double-edged sword.
It is.
Everything, no matter what. Knowledge is a double-edged sword. Power is nuclear power, religious power, whatever. It's all double-edged, and it depends on what edge you decide to use. And anyway, boy, that's
that was
my ideal. 200 years in the future, when my kids have grandchildren, is to say, you know what, we've I look at shows like Star Trek and see us going out into the world as a global, unified humanity. What a freaking awesome vision is that?
It's an awesome vision.
From 40 years ago. That's a beautiful vision. And I'd ascribe to that. I'd sign on for that. It's just a lot of crap, it sounds like, we're going to have to go through to get to it.
Well, yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of death and heartache. As messed up as it sounds, the entire religious text, if you're trying to find your way to truth, it's difficult. Well, I said, I'll see stories in religious texts, the Bible, for instance, and I said earlier, like, if you read them literally for what they say, not for what they mean, but for what they say. This happened. A plus B equals C. And you step away from what it's supposed to mean and just read what it says. It's not that hard to believe. In context, Proverbs, that's a book of wisdom. It doesn't matter whether you believe in a God or not. But, stay out of debt. Right. Be nice to people. Stop fucking around.
Yeah, there's some pretty decent general rules in there.
But, there's so much lost in context and so much lost in power and control.
Right.
Yep. To where, we've talked before as far, in another podcast, how, like, we're in the middle of an election season, and my true political is anarchist. And anarchist not meaning something like the Purge, where everybody just goes out and kills each other, but anarchists meaning I can do whatever I want to do as long as I'm not hurting you or you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And true liberty, in a sense, is I have to be able to accept that you may do things that I don't like, that I may find immoral or ghastly, Maybe you like tying up your girlfriend and screwing her in the ass, and I find that abhorrent. But as long as you guys are cool with it and you're not hurting me, then
whatever,
then
dude.
Then I have to accept that my form of normal and your form of normal are just fine as long as you're not making me pay for it and you're not hurting me while you're doing it.
So pretty much the system that we had set up.
And yet whenever you speak to people who have that same sort of liberty-minded mindset are like, well, everything's just fine until people smoke drugs because that's just wrong. Well, okay, fine. You can think that it's wrong all you want, but is it hurting you?
Yeah.
Like, is it hurting you personally? Well, I have an employee who just smokes out all day and he costs me money. Well, fucking fire him.
Yeah, get rid of his ass.
But
we got into that on a podcast not too long ago.
But
Where it was like,
the act of doing things that you disagree with,
Right.
And so then it comes back up to power, and then you have you have these modes of social control where I'm just going to keep everybody unhappy just that little bit on one side or the other.
Yep.
They'll just be that just little bit dissatisfied, so they give me all the power and all the control.
Yeah.
And I think that's a place where we are not evolved.
No.
Right.
We are not evolved.
Right.
And the people we put into power are complete sociopaths. Because I'm a person that
you couldn't have put it in a more proper psychological
I'm a person
sense.
that if you gave me like Superman powers, you could fly around and just make everybody do what, like, you control society. I'd be like, fly up and fucking like make my eyes red and be like, leave everybody the fuck alone.
Laser eyes, bitch.
Just let them do what they need to do. The first time you start yelling at somebody for believing some shit that you don't, we got problems. Quit it. You believe what you want to believe. You believe what you want to believe, and everybody else just fucking build a pyramid or some shit. Just build one over there and build one over there and stop it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But I'm not a sociopath. Most sociopaths are like, oh, well, let me get those guys and go to those guys and let me force them to live together and kind of argue and let them both come to me and I'll make laws and keep them both just that little bit of unsatisfied. And I will make this side vote for me because I'll build a wall, and I'll make this side vote for me because I'll let them, have sex or something.
Yeah.
And that's the control aspect that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we buy into it so wholeheartedly.
Oh, absolutely.
That people are fighting over fucking Donald Trump right now. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, do you not think that if that guy actually wins, that there will not be a grassy knoll?
Yeah.
Or 2 or 3 or 4? If he actually wins, he'll be taken out so fast, or at least pulled out to pasture and told to quit it.
The Dudes and Beer podcast does not advocate violence against anybody
Or
anywhere in the world at all.
Or any kind of grassy knoll action.
Despite the fact that there may
I'm
be a
not saying that
grassy
it
knoll
should
action.
happen. I'm saying, don't you think that it will?
I'm not saying that the possibility is not way there. I'm just saying that the Dudes and Beer podcast does not advocate violence against anybody. But information is controlled, and that's the sad fact. Knowledge is controlled. It's been proven throughout time. It's been proven throughout just about any government that's existed ever that knowledge is controlled.
Right.
The amount of information that is out there is controlled. And even for me, the amount of information on the technology that we know is controlled. Even with the whole concept right now of whether or not the FBI can crack into an iPhone. Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can. Like, Snowden showed that a long time ago, and he just came out and was like, "Hey, I showed you that a long time ago."
Right. Yeah.
You know, they've had the technology to do this because
John
they,
McAfee too.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he was a guest on the show. I remember that. He was fantastic. And yeah, it's disturbing, the amount of power that's there and the amount of restriction that can be there on that knowledge.
Right, and that's the whole thing. You know, like I said, you look at a visionary like Gene Roddenberry, and you look 200 years into the future where nothing is apparently where nothing is hidden. I mean, you look at our own future where you've got, you know, Obama wasn't wanting to give the keys to the kingdom to some multinational body to the control of the internet.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've said it before, we will be ultimately, and whether it's right or wrong, I don't think it's wrong. I think as a species, ultimately, the only way to evolve into the cosmos is to be united. That's the way to gain our entrance into the brotherhood of the stars, is to be a unified humanity.
So my question here, because there's one of two ways to look
because
at
we
it.
won't be the American humanity going out to the stars, or the Chinese humanity,
I'm
or
with
the
you.
European
I'm with you
humanity.
because, like I said, there's one of two ways to look at it. Number one, there's the fact of if you look at the UN seal, it's very akin to the United Federation of Planets.
Okay, I gotcha.
But not only that, you also look at it from the Van Horn point of view of Starship Troopers and the fact of we are a united humanity and what's happening then.
We're at war with somebody else.
We're at war with somebody.
Okay.
Either way, I mean,
Either way,
we're at war with somebody else. And
thing
even
is-
Stephen Hawking has said that you know, quite honestly, if anybody could make it here, whether it's via light speed or whether it's via warping gravitational fields and getting here through a wormhole, whatever it is, that technology to be here is way more advanced than us, and we need to be vastly afraid.
And I'd say,
We need to
you know,
should it exist, we need to be vastly afraid. Because
okay, let me draw
there's
back
no
to
way.
the whole
way.
beginning of this thing. Okay, if some culture, whatever it is, if some culture came here and seeded us, or taught us what we know, or showed us things that we've tried to emulate over millennia,
Yep.
whatever, if they ever came back, or if they have come back, or whatever, and we needed to portray a unified front, are we, or at what point will we be advanced enough, or evolved enough, or united enough to do that? And you know, you hear all this stuff about, I said it earlier, you know, what's written in Revelation, the mark of the beast, and this mark
Sure.
that without which no one can do any commerce with or anything like that.
Yeah,
You
but
know what?
even Ronald Reagan posited the question of should some threat from outside of our Earth come to us, would we not unite together to stop it?
And you know, you can put all this false flag stuff out there.
Sure,
and,
you can fearmonger all the day
fear
long.
mongering to bring about this. The thing is, if we look forward 200 years and we want to be out into the universe, and we want to, like I said,
We're already out into the universe.
enter into the galactic or universal brotherhood or sisterhood or whatever you want to call it. If we want to go out there, we've got a lot of changing we have to do. And the only way that will happen is if we're one race, one species, one we have to find some way of being one.
Yeah.
And, we got a lot of transcending to do before we get there.
You want to hear like my very, very bleak ending to this podcast?
No.
I started
No.
it. I
I
started
don't want to
it.
be.
God damn, dude.
I started it, and so I'm going to go ahead and end it.
I was about to go James Cameron, man, and be like, what if they're
No.
all from the fucking depths of the ocean?
Yeah,
You know what?
I think
I'm
we're-
going
I think
Gene
we're about-
Roddenberry. You go
I think
James
we're
Cameron,
about
I go
2
Gene
hours
Roddenberry.
or 2 hours in.
I'm Gene
So
Roddenberry.
Yeah, 2 hours.
we'll chat further, but this is what I really think, and this, as bad as it sounds, this is what I really think. I think about 10,000 years from now, there's going to be 3 guys on a porch talking about the same things that we're talking about now.
Yep.
And they're going to be talking about how shit was found and shit ain't right. And they're going to have Roman ruins that are 2,000 years old, but we were 8,000 years before them. And they might have made a little bit more of a record. They won't have the dinosaur fossils because those will be dust by then.
Yep.
But we're going to go another couple cycles of just destroying ourselves, dying off. Just society financially just cannot support itself anymore. And we go the way of the Romans, and
Well, and like I said,
and we're going to go back cart and horse,
they're-
and they're going to
go-
rediscover all of the things that we did again,
I'm
and
trying.
think that they're the first ones to have done it.
I'm trying to remember.
The only difference is going to be plastic. The only difference is going to be plastic. They're going to find, like, in the fossil record, they're going to find, like, a couple of
wouldn't
shin
go-
bones and a bunch of old deposits of plastic. And they're going to mine plastic like we mine metals.
What they're going to find is freaking titanium bones and
Yeah.
joints and shit and go,
Yeah.
this was
Because
all Terminator.
believe it or not,
Yeah.
most plastic starts decaying through infrared and ultraviolet light and stuff like that. And
But
disappears.
to put a lid on the podcast as we run low on beer and the champagne is gone and the cider is gone and the beer's almost gone, I really think that we're going to be back here in 10,000 years,
Yep.
and we're going to be discussing Sumerians who were like 5,000 years ago and cannot even conceive of 10,000 years ago. And they're going to be splitting the atom, and they're going to have a CERN in fucking, like, Guatemala.
Right.
And we're going to be like, wow, that's some crazy shit. We're the first ones to have ever done it. And we're like the 6th.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
the truth
Well-
is out there.
Well, and that's just it. It is out there. And to say that science is an absolute science, science by definition is constantly evolving.
Let me bring it into a biblical perspective.
Do it.
All right, with whether it's this or whether it's the end times or whatever. In scriptures, Jesus said, "You don't know the day or the hour. You don't know crap. The only one who knows crap is my Father." Okay, so you can conjecture all you want, you can believe all you want, you can timeline out all the crap you want. You don't know. The only
Yep.
thing you know is now.
Now.
Right now, this moment, what do? Do you live the Beatitudes? You live the commandments? Do you do what's right now? And to stretch it out, do you search for the truth right now? Do you live in peace right now? Whether it's with your neighbor, whether with your enemy, with whoever. What do you do with right now? And of course, you try to build a better future and all of that stuff.
Sure.
But we don't have a future guaranteed. We don't have tomorrow guaranteed.
Nope.
The birds of the air and the insects in the field and all that stuff, they don't know. They don't care.
Yep.
What do you do with right now? And so anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I throw out there. is, we don't know. We don't know what's coming 10,000 years from now or
Nope.
2,000 seconds from now.
I
Nope.
agree.
And that's just it. You look at the advancements that we've had even since we were kids, from Atari to now.
Don't talk about Atari. Talk about porn again. It's more interesting.
From what we knew as porn when we were kids to now. It's
Pitfall Joe, man.
It's out of control, and the constant roll will always be there. It's and the fact is, we can't know all of it. We will never know all of it. All we can do is continue searching. We can keep searching for truth. We can keep searching for the truth with the capital T, beyond all boundaries, what is even beyond known science, because, hey, that's how we come up with science. At one point, it was beyond belief, and it was science fiction, literally, to put a man in orbit, to put a man on the moon. It was Jules Verne, shit like that. And before we knew it, we had an actual man on the moon. So it is possible. These things are possible. So on that note, hey, if you can't be good at it, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. Keep them frosty. Take care. You've been listening to the Dudes and Beer podcast. Visit us online at www.dudesandbeer.com. Find our audio streams on soundcloud.com and spreaker.com/Dudes and Beer. Follow us on Facebook /Dudes and Beer. Thanks for listening, everybody. And until next time, drink responsibly.